Hi, good afternoon. My name is Ryan Pauling, and on behalf of the 9/11 Memorial Museum, I'd like to thank you for attending today's program. We Were There is a moderated conversation presented in partnership with the 9/11 Tribute Center. It's a new addition to our regular auditorium programming, which includes Facing Crisis, America Under Attack. That's a short film featuring original interviews with Presidents George W. Bush, New York Governor George Pataki, and New York City Mayor Rudolph Giuliani, among others. We invite you to stick around after this, and we'll screen that again starting again at 5 o'clock. You may have noticed in your visit today that the exhibitions at the 9/11 Memorial Museum are filled with first-person narratives and the voices of people who experienced 9/11 and its aftermath. The recognition that history is written out of stories of real people is the heart of the mission of our partner organization, the 9/11 Tribute Center. Almost a decade ago, the Tribute Center was founded to bring people together who were deeply affected by 9/11 in order to build a community devoted to sharing and preserving their 9/11 experiences. The Tribute Center shares these personal stories on their daily tours of the World Trade Center site, guides from a diverse group of volunteers, first responders, family members, survivors, downtown residents, and others who have a personal story that they encountered during the attacks. In a few moments, you'll hear two of the Tribute Center guides tell a little bit about their own personal stories. By sharing these memories, we hope to help you understand a little bit better the human impact of 9/11. A little housekeeping just before we begin. The program's going to be about 35 minutes long. If you don't mind, I'd like to have everyone just silence their cell phones. No photography of any kind is permitted. And with that, I would like to welcome Judith Bucci of the 9/11 Tribute Center. She'll be today's moderator.
Well, thank you, everyone. Welcome. As you heard, my name is Judith Pucci, and I'm a Tribute Center Walking Guide volunteer. We are a diverse group of people. We come from different backgrounds. We come from different age groups. In fact, in the normal course of life, many of us would never have met one another. But now we share a powerful bond. And we come to the Tribute Center because it's our home base. It's where we find support, and it's where we tell our stories. And the stories are about what it was like to be on the inside of September 11th. So today we're going to be hearing two of those stories. And we're going to be hearing them from two of my fellow Tribute Center guides, Susan Wylie and Bill Spade. Susan worked for Aon Insurance Risk Services. She was on the 92nd floor of the South Tower. That was the building that was hit second. Susan had changed jobs less than 1 month prior to September 11th. She found working in the towers exciting, and when I describe her view to you, you'll understand why. She would look out her window and she saw blue sky above and Manhattan just laid out below. Susan said it was the type of view that made her have to pinch herself. Bill is a retired New York City firefighter. But before he became a firefighter, Bill was a police officer, NYPD. That was back in 1984? 1984. Bill likes to jokingly say that in 1985 he was promoted to a firefighter. Bill has retired now from the fire department, and he did that in 2003. The first person you're going to hear from is Susan. But before Susan tells you the story, let me just set the scene for you a bit. Aon Insurance, Susan's company, occupied several floors of the South Tower, between the 92nd and the 105th floors. So they were near the very top of that building. At 9:03 a.m., the second plane hit the South Tower. It enters the building about 12 floors below where Susan's office was. That meant that morning, Susan was above the point of impact, one of the most dangerous places to have been that day. Earlier, 17 minutes earlier, the first plane had hit the North Tower. So at this point, like thousands of other people in her building, Susan had made the decision to stay at her desk or to leave.
About a year before September 11th happened, I had a very uneasy feeling that something was going to happen. I didn't understand it, but I felt strongly that change was coming. And these feelings gnawed at me. So I told my friend Rose. Rose and I would travel to work every day, and we'd take the subway, and we shared many conversations. But one conversation that we always came back to was these feelings of uncertainty. And I told Rose that one day, life is going to be different. In July of 2001, these feelings became stronger. And I started thinking about my own mortality. I started to reorganize my life. And I gave half my jewelry away. You see, for half my life, I've been mourning the loss of my three siblings, Billy, Ann, and Tommy. Tommy was a New York City probationary firefighter. And I think back to the day when we used to all hang out on a Friday night playing cards. Tommy sat back and said that he couldn't wait for his first big fire. But at the same breath, he said he'd be the next to go, and 3 months later, Tommy was killed in the line of duty. I unexpectedly changed jobs 3 weeks before September 11th. And on the morning of, I was sitting at my desk on the 82nd floor of the South Tower, looking at the beautiful view, talking to my new friend Julia, when a colleague was talking about a plane. And I didn't really think too much of it until she started pointing and shouting, "Oh my God." When I went to the window, I saw a large commercial plane with the letters AA and the red and blue stripes. And I could hear the sound of the plane as it rushed towards the window, and I thought it was going to land on top of my head. Instead, it made a slight turn, and it plunged into the North Tower. It made a small sound like a boom, but the nose of the plane disappeared, and the wings were flushed against the tower, and there was a small fire in each wing. Then there was a massive explosion. A huge fireball erupted, and I could feel a flash of heat singe my necklace. And then this fireball looked like a 4th of July fireworks display, and I just saw the sun sitting over this horrific scene, and I knew people died in my heart. They went to heaven. My body shook with fear, but I went back to my desk. I turned off my computer, grabbed my bag, and walked with my friend Julie to the other side of the tower, where we met Diane. I told Diane what happened, because if you didn't see it, you didn't know. So while she's telling my unit, I can see my boss Larry on the far end of the room, just clutching the window with his hands. And I never saw him again. Diane led us down the stairwell, and I remember thinking about the people on the plane. And I started to cry, and then I just pulled myself together and started counting floors. So I imagined being somewhere else, like Atlantic City, playing roulette. And I'd say, every time I made it to another floor, I'd say, floor number 82, black or red, place your bets. Until some woman told me to shut up. So I did. I made it down to the 78 Sky Lobby when we heard the announcement that the building's secure, go back to your desk. And people started walking back up. But I knew we had to leave, and we had to keep walking down, and we made the decision to do so, despite Diane having trouble with her knees. I knew I was on the 56th floor because I'm still counting when my girlfriend got a phone call. She said, "We're okay, we're safe." And as soon as she hung up, there was this massive explosion. I thought it was a secondary gas explosion, but it was the second plane hitting us. And we all screamed, and the stairwell rocked us violently from side to side. And I felt death. And I heard God's voice in my head saying, "Susan, that's it. You're coming with me, let's go." And it was followed by a vision of falling down the staircase, trapped with no way out. And then I thought about my three siblings, and I knew that they were with me. I could feel their spirit. And then I realized I'm still alive. And then all of a sudden I felt this overwhelming presence, God's presence. It was all around me, like this protective barrier where nothing bad could penetrate. It was an emotional calmness that came over me. It was peaceful, but I knew I'd be safe. And I told Diane, "Look, let me help you. My parents lost 3 children. I'm not going to be the fourth to go. I know that God will protect us." And then I heard a man's voice from behind saying, "Stay calm, let's move a little faster, and we'll all get out safely." So I proceeded to help Diane down, and we made it down 82 floors out of the tower. The Port Authority police let us out. When I turned around to look, I saw 2 towers burning, and I couldn't imagine how I survived. And I'm hearing my mother's voice in my head sort of saying, "Susan, just run." And my friend Julie and I locked arms, still in my high heels and dress, and we just ran. And we didn't stop running And so we got to the courthouse. I made a phone call. I spoke to my twin sister. I told her I was okay. But she said she thought for a second that I had died. And she couldn't convince my dad that I was alive. He had to hear my voice. And he kept saying, not again, not again. As soon as I stepped outside the courthouse a few minutes later, the South Tower collapsed. I was confused and horrified. And 30 minutes later, the North Tower collapsed. I knew thousands of people were dead, but nothing felt real. I made it home at 6 o'clock, greeted by my family, and you couldn't tell by looking at me that I survived the attacks. I felt very detached, almost like I wasn't there, and that somebody else was walking in my shoes. And then my friend Rose came running up to me saying, Susan, Susan, oh my God, thinking about our past conversations. How did you get out? I said, I just walked out. We both looked at each other, and we knew that I did not walk alone. And days later, I remembered that vision in the stairwell, and I knew that God was with me.
Thank you, Susan. That morning, about 20,000 people, roughly, safely evacuated the Trade Center. As you just heard, Susan didn't mention the number, but it was 176 of her colleagues and friends were not among them. The reason Susan tells her story is to pay honor to everyone who didn't make it out that day. She also pays tribute to them. I kind of love this idea, another way. Every day she does one act of kindness. Think about it. One act of kindness, everybody in the world. Pretty good. Now for Bill. Like Susan, Bill is a survivor. But as Susan was racing away from the towers, Bill was racing into them. That was his job, and he did it. And there are people alive today because he did.
August 28, 2001. 27-year-old probationary firefighter Michael Garumba loses his life in a fire. I remember reading the accounts on that, and it really bothered me. He leaves behind a 2-year-old son and a pregnant wife. 3 days later, September 1st, 2001, Memorial Day weekend, the New York City Fire Department prepares for his burial. I remember getting home that morning, Saturday morning, about 8 a.m., greeted by my wife, holding my 2-month-old son, and as I usually do, I give him a kiss on the forehead. Running down the hallway, my 6-year-old son, Billy, jumps into my arms. I had just worked at 24. He was wondering what I had in store for him this day. But I was in a rush to get to the funeral. And I go to my room, I shower, and I'm getting ready, and he appears at the doorway. Give me that look of, you can't be leaving again. Quickly I give in, I said, if you want to come with me, go get dressed. And off he scatters. I go to my closet looking for my dress blue uniform. I can't seem to locate it. It's in the deepest part of the closet. Now that's a good thing. That means I haven't worn it in a while, because it's usually reserved for funerals. I find the uniform as I'm putting it on, who's standing in the doorway with my son Billy, in his blue suit. He wanted to be just like that. Off we go to the funeral. September 13th, 2001, about 2 a.m. in the morning, Metropolitan Hospital, New York City. I wake up, sweat, full of sweat. I haven't slept in 2 days. My mind racing, so many emotions going through me. I said, I have to get up and put it all down on paper. Maybe it'll help me sleep. I remember I walked to the nurse's station, and I asked the nurse for a place to sit down, a piece of paper and a pen, and she hands me everything. And I laugh and I say, I'm going to need more paper than that. And I begin writing. And I don't start with September 11th. I go back to the funeral of Michael Garumba. It's still having its effect on me. And then I get to the morning of September 11th. A clear, beautiful day. I remember reporting to work that morning, 7:30 in the morning, Rescue Company 5 on Staten Island. I remember opening the front doors that morning, the music is playing. That tells me right away Dougie Miller's working. Party guy, he likes to have a good atmosphere in the kitchen. There's a dozen bagels there with French vanilla coffee made. Mickey Russelmundo's working. My good friend Mike Fiore, I see him. It's going to be a great day. Joe Miscali's cooking French toast at the stove. I didn't know he knew where that stove was. It was going to be a fantastic day, or so I thought. Just before 9, the call comes in to respond to the World Trade Center. I remember making our way through Brooklyn and hearing the reports. Things didn't sound good. But just anxious to get there so we can help. Just before we entered the Brooklyn Battery Tunnel, witnessing the second plane strike that South Tower, I knew things weren't going to be good that day. Making our way through into the city, up West Street, through the tunnel, and seeing all the death and destruction already. Reporting into the command post and being told to work out of the North Tower. Making my way over to the North Tower, and the first person I see when I enter that North Tower, Father Michael Judge, Fire Department chaplain. Very white in complexion and saying the rosary that day. I take my position, stairway seat, North Tower, helping evacuate people. 200 feet to your right, down the escalator, and you're out the building. You almost made it. One more fight to go. Good job. Over and over saying this. And then I hear something collapsing. I don't know what, but I jump in that stairway. It seems like the building's coming down on top of us. Little do I know, that's the South Tower coming down. Trapped in that stairwell for a while, with the help of emergency service police officer John Gallara, the two of us force open that door, and in the blackened hallway, we start lighting up the hallway for people to continue escaping. Amongst all this, John and I are joking, and out of nowhere he brings that he has a wife and 2 kids, 2 boys, and I say I have the same. And we're joking. And when it seems like there's no one else left in the building, the 2 of us, along with 6 others, decide we're going to leave that North Tower. And we get out of the North Tower, we're out of that building 30 seconds, and now we hear that building coming down on top of us. I remember getting picked up and blown 40 feet into a building, crawling up in a ball, and in 1 second saying goodbye to my wife and 2 boys. My little guy, 2 months old, I said, man, you'll never know your dad. That hurt like hell. After it was over, I was still alive. It took about 45 minutes to get out, and I make it down Survivor Stairs onto VC Street. I remember walking up the block and reporting to a chief, saluting and telling him, Chief, there's been a collapse. I've lost some men back there. And he said, we have lost a lot of men today. Get in the ambulance and get out of here. That's how I wound up at Metropolitan Hospital. I got a call later that evening at the hospital, my brother-in-law and Rescue 5, telling me that all the men from that day had perished. 12 of us working, and I was the only one to make it home. Then getting a call from my wife, telling me that my Uncle Joe Driscoll had also been on Flight 93 that went down to Shanksville. I remember the last sentence I wrote 8 hours later into my writing, 11 pages of loosely, front and back. The last line I wrote was, may I never ever have to tell this story ever again. Getting out of the hospital 3 days later, I was anxious to get home, to see my family, but my firehouse family was gone. I remember getting home to my house, greeted by my wife, and then my little guy, 6 years old, coming up, a little hesitant because of my injuries, but I told him I'll heal, I'll be okay. And then asked him where my 2-month-old was. He was in his crib. I made it down the hallway to the crib. I released the bar and lowered the gate on the crib. I remember kneeling down and kissing him on the forehead. And I told him I'll be here for you as long as I can. Unfortunately, for the next 3 months or so, every time I went to my closet, staring me right in the face, right in the center, was that dress blue uniform. Thank you.
The men that Bill just told you about, they were among 343 New York City firefighters who died that day. That was unprecedented. When the first attack took place, the night shift was ending and the morning shift began. So nearly every firefighter, on duty or off, rushed to the Trade Center, which is why the death toll was as high as it was. Also killed that day, 23 New York City police officers and 37 Port Authority police. September 11th stands as the worst loss of first responders in a single event in United States history. For Susan, surviving that day left her with a deeper appreciation for life. Bill went through years of counseling to be able to share his story with you. Telling it has helped him make a recovery possible. I would like to open it up. We have a few minutes left. If anyone has a question or two that they'd like to ask either Bill or Susan. All right, a shy group. Well then, thank you all very much. I would just like to close by thanking Susan and Bill for sharing their stories. One of the reasons telling these stories is important is because it shows that the resiliency of the human spirit is enormous, even in the face of unthinkable tragedies. So it is our hope also that having heard these stories will enrich your experience here at the museum today. So on behalf of the 9/11 Tribute Center, Susan, Bill, and me, thank you for sharing your time with us.